So recording now. So great. Welcome everybody. It's great to see lots of new faces joining office hours. So just for the new folks, just so you know how these typically go, I give like maybe 10-15 minutes of updates, interesting things. And if you have any questions at any point throughout this, feel free to stop me and ask the question, and then we open it up to Q&A. So if you have a specific question that you'd like to ask everybody, or if you'd like to share something that you've built this week, feel free to speak up. But so we can get started. The first thing that I wanted to share is the June app competition. So every month we host a competition in Tulip, in which the kind of the thing that we ask is different every month. So sometimes we ask most interesting user interface, system that you've connected to, whatever it is. But this month, we want to see the most interesting device that you've connected to. So for the winner, you can win the Edge MC, which is one of our devices that you can use to connect to other devices. So anything that's running on your frontline, you can use to connect to it to Tulip. So if you want to participate in this competition, simply share what device you've integrated to. And Chris, I assume you have a pretty big library of things that you connect to. But if anyone else, it doesn't, can be as simple as a barcode scanner or a big CNC or injection molding machine. It doesn't matter. Would you want to see what devices you've connected to? So there aren't any submissions yet. So right now, the first one to submit could win. So I just posted the link there in the chat. So feel free to post in the competition there if you'd like to be entered to win. Okay, cool. So that was the first thing. Next, I want to give a quick table queries demo. So essentially, so table queries and aggregations were added into the Tulip product a couple of months ago, and they open up a lot of interesting use cases. And here, to showcase one of them, I wanted to show how you can kind of, depending on a criteria that you define, you can have certain actions execute. So oftentimes you'll see, I think it's called like pluralization. So like if there is one work order, then we'll show one message. If there are many, we'll show, okay, there are many work orders open. So, here we're just showing a message. You'll see it pop up here. There is one open work order. If I come in here and I just say, I mark this one as not complete, I'll save this. And now I come back in here and I check this, and now you can see there are 2 open work orders. Now, of course, this isn't that, it is kind of interesting just like this, just showing the message. But I wanted to show it just because it's important to know that you can kind of use logic that you set up in your table queries and aggregations in your app. So just to see what this button here looks like, if I go check out the trigger on this button, we'll see it's quite simple. It's only got two elements within it. The first one says, okay, if the table aggregation open work orders, which I created, is greater than or equal to 2, then let's show the message there are, and then we add in the number of open work orders, which is an aggregation that I can show you in just a second. Open work orders. Else, let's just show the message there is one open work order. Yep, see you soon, Ryan. So yeah, this is, again, this is just simply showing a message, but of course here you could add any action or transition that you'd like, depending on whatever your query and aggregation returns. So just to show you how you can set up table queries and aggregations. So from any table that you have within Tulip, you can come up here and click on queries, and you'll see a list of queries. And if folks are familiar with SQL, this is kind of a way to organize all the information that you have in your Tulip tables to make better sense of it. So for example, this is the one that we're looking at, count open work orders. You can see it's really simple. All it is I put one filter on this query. So it says, okay, complete equals to no. And that's why in here you're seeing these 2 work orders, 405 and 123, which are the, and I can test it here from the the table, you'll see there are these two work orders that are being displayed. Good. So now if I close this out, I say I'll mark this one here back to complete yes, and I go back in here and I can see. Then sorry, actually, let me just go over the because you can also add an aggregation, and basically an aggregation is, if you come in here, you can see you can do all these operations on your queries. So you can average, count, max, min, mode, sum on the query that you define. So now if I come back in here in the app editor, you can see that I linked up the query, the count open work orders, and I also added the open work orders count, which is why we're getting this variable over here is showing is the Tulip table aggregation open work orders. So now if I go back in here, again, this is just displaying the message, but you can use this for anything you like. If you want to put a logic that basically if there are more than 10 open work orders, call someone into the cell for support or whatever it is, you can kind of define your workflow that way using table queries and aggregations. So cool. Are there any questions, by the way, on table queries and aggregation? Does it make sense how they work? Folks already using them? Okay, yeah, no problem. I mean, it's you can really do a lot of interesting stuff with table queries. So I recommend kind of starting to play around with it. There's a university course that covers how you can use them, and a knowledge base article if you want to get started using them. So, okay, cool. The next thing that I wanted to show is how you can increment table record fields from an app. So here we have, again, the same table. So this is displaying a series of work orders. And here I'm displaying the quantity that is associated with each of these work orders. Now, if I come in here and I select any of these, say I select this one and I click this button, increment quantity, you can see it just goes through and it increments this by one. This is a really simple thing, but I think it's a powerful way to manipulate data in tables. People typically do it, they kind of link it up to an input field or do something else. But here you can just have a button with a very simple trigger. You can come in here, I can show you the trigger on this button click. On this button press, you can see, okay, when the button is pressed, then increment value in this table record, the current work order quantity by static value 1. Of course, I put this to 10, and I come back in here and I click it. You'll see it go to 25, 35, 45, and just increment by whatever we define in this field here. It doesn't have to be a static value. So if I come in here and I add an input, a number input, I'll say, okay, I'll ask the user to enter, let me just create a new variable, increment by. So I'll ask the user to say, okay, how many do you want to increment by? I'll make it an integer. I'll create this variable. I'll put some text, I'll put a little label so the user knows what they're inputting. Increment by. Perfect. And then in here, in this trigger, I'll change it. And instead of incrementing by its static value, I'll move this over. I'll select variable and I'll select increment by. So whatever the user enters in there, that's how much it's going to increment that field by in the table. So let me just close off these aggregations. And now if I open up the app again and I say I put in here 1 to start off with, we'll see on this work order 405, because that's the one that's selected, increment by 1, it goes to 46, 47. Now if I put 123, it's going to go up. I can't count, but here you can see that the number is incrementing by whatever the user defines in here. So again, this is a really simple way to increment any number fields that you have in your tables by either a static value or a variable that the user inputs. Awesome. Are there any questions on this, on how this works, on how it can be used, and what use cases it's interesting for? Okay, awesome, no problem. So in this case now, I wanted to go through an app that's in the library. So I'll open up. So for folks that are new and aren't familiar, the Tulip library is a set of apps that are built internally by Tulip to help you solve problems right out of the box. So you can come in here, just go to tulip.co library apps, and I can link this here in the chat. And you basically you come in here, browse through all their hundreds of apps, and every 2 weeks we add more to them. So you can come in here, and for example, in the release 17, every 2 weeks we release new apps, and you can see in community we post all the new apps. So for example, last week we released an inventory management one, work order tracking, audit checklist. There's always interesting use cases that we add to the library. So it's an ever-growing thing. But there are some that are just kind of like they work out of the box. So for example, I have a bunch installed here in my instance. So if I navigate over to the library, for example, a simple checklist. Once you install it, it works out of the box. You have all the functionality. You can of course come in here, customize it to fit your needs, but they work out of the box. So as soon as you install it, you can use it. This is again a simple checklist. So just if you need to do a series of tasks on a machine maintenance or setup, whatever it is, you can kind of use this app here. And it's also actually a good exercise to kind of learn how to build apps, because all these apps are built by kind of Tulip professionals internally to Tulip. So you can always come in here, take a look at all the triggers, see what's happening, and learn this way. That's actually one of, I think, the big advantages of the library, is just using it to learn. But then down here, you can see that it's organized by categories. So we have a series of categories in the library that, whether it's templates, modules, examples, but again, the one that we want to focus on is connectors. And we have a series of Microsoft 365 connectors. So the one that I'm going to be demoing today is the Microsoft Excel. So of course, Excel is a really powerful tool that's used all around the world. And we built an app that connects to Microsoft 365 Excel. So this is a unit test app, I'd like to specify. And this is important because it brings in the connector. You can see all the functions and everything, but it's not really like a lot of the other apps are like there are use cases that you can build. Like the audit one, you can just use out of the box to run audits in your facility, whereas this one is really a unit test, so you can learn how to connect to a worksheet in Microsoft Excel 365 and how to read and write information. So if I open up the app here, it's actually over here. Okay, close off this other stuff. So I'll open it up so you can see how it works. But basically, the app itself. So the first thing, once you get it, once you install it, you'll see that the connector is imported. So here it is. So this is what the connector looks like. For those of you who aren't familiar with connectors, these are what you can use to connect to SQL databases or to REST APIs to read or write information from a bunch of systems. Here you can see all the connection details. So this is all pre-set up once you install it, but you can come in here and view all the parameters that you can define to your Microsoft Excel. And then there's a bunch of functions that you can see here. They kind of define what they do. So add a new row, add a table, clear data, create a new worksheet, all the functions that are imported once you add an app from the library. Is a unit test connector. So if I come in here, and you'll see the first one in the app is get drive details. So if I click this button, the first thing we'll do is it basically loads a list of Excel worksheets that we have within our instance. So I have 3 sheets in my instance: book 1, book, and hello world. And hello world, as you can see here, is the one that I have open in my browser right now. So that's the one that we're interested in. So I'll select it and I'll click next. So the next step here is you can see basically get worksheets. So I click submit, and you can see there's 3 worksheets. Worksheet 3, new worksheet, and I can better organize these. Let me just name this one. Let's say budget. Okay, and this one rename. I'll rename it to expenses. And one, so I can just go ahead and delete that. So now, of course, if I come back in here, submit this again, let's see, it's going to update to the new. Sorry, 1 second. Oh, I don't know why it's not pulling in the latest ones. Just restart the app real quick. Sometimes it takes a step to update. Okay, the world. Okay, here they are. So budget and expenses. Okay, we want to take a look at the sheet name, at the sheet budget. So I'll select it. I'll click next. Here, this is specific worksheet data. So not that interested in this one. Here we can create a new worksheet. So I'll say my new worksheet from Tulip. Click submit. See the all is it goes and creates a new sheet within your within the we had open, so the hello world one. It has this information here. All right, so Chris. So yeah, basically I wanted to show this because you can also send information, not only read information about the worksheet, but also send information. So in this case, adding a new worksheet. So here we can update the properties. I'm not interested in that right now. Okay. So we can get a specific cell, but actually, let me just this one. Also, come in here and I'll open up the worksheet expenses, A1 to B1. I'll click submit, and boom, you can see into it now. You have this information that's in the cell. Of course, if I come in here and I update this, good. Bye. I click submit. It's my internet connection is unstable. It's going to update in just a second. I mean, it does take just a couple of seconds to update, but you'll see it's going to be reflected in the app. And of course, like I mentioned earlier, this is a unit test app, so it's kind of designed to help you understand. So for example, if you want to go in here and say, okay, which one was this one? Get worksheet data. And it's basically this one here. You can see the function, how it works. So, everything is set up here. So you don't have to rewrite all this stuff. It's just once you install the app, you have all this information in here, gives the range, the ID of the worksheet, all this information, and then it outputs it and stores it. So if I open up the app as well, you'll see here it is, Microsoft Excel. So get worksheet data range is the step that we were looking at. And basically the submit button, there's just 2 triggers, one for error validation, if the user doesn't input anything. And then the other one is just running this connector function that we were just looking at, where we pass in all the user inputs. So the start of the range, the end of the range, the worksheet name, and then we store this in here in Tulip. So we have it available to use. So yeah, you can also update information. There's a bunch of things that we can need to get into the details of them, but that's high level how this app works. Are there any questions we can with, or folks already using? Folks already connected to? Okay. Yeah, I think it's It's a really cool one, honestly. It's I think it's interesting, like I mentioned earlier, just even if you want to learn how it works, you can come in here, look at it. I'll send the link here in the chat so folks can take a look at it. But yeah, so those are the main things that we wanted to cover in terms of updates for today. I'm going to open it up to see, are there any questions that folks have, either general ones or specific to your apps that we can help out with?
This is Martina. I have a question about those tables.
Yeah.
So how do I create a filter for the table? Like for what you presented right now, like you have your IDs, the work order, but I want to filter out those have not completed. So how do I create a filter for those?
Yeah, for sure. I can show you how to do that. If I come in here, I open up this app that I have. So first of all, I guess I should specify for folks that aren't familiar with what we're seeing here, this widget is called an interactive table. So to add an interactive table, you can come to embed and then interactive table. But then once you embed this interactive table, you can go ahead and basically select what's called the data source. So you link it directly either to a variable, a Tulip table, or a Tulip table query. In this case, I'm just going to select Tulip table. I select the Tulip table that I want to connect to. So in this case, let me open up the work orders one. So here it is. Basically, then if you scroll down here, we can add filters to it. So if I come in here, you'll see this modal here is open. It says, okay, include records matching all these conditions. And here we can say, okay, if the quantity is greater than or equal to, and then here we can either like link it to a variable, static value, app info. So for example, if you want to see only work orders assigned to yourself, you could do that. But in this case, let's see, for example, all the work orders that have more than 100 items. I'll create this filter, and you see basically right away filters out to only these two work orders in the app, 120 and 417, these two work orders. Now, if I come in here and this one here, instead of 4, I'll make it 409. I'll save it. In real time, the filter is updated. So now we have this record here as well.
Okay, gotcha. Thank you.
Yep. Yeah. That's a good question. Yeah, and you can add as many filters as you'd like. And either make them all match or any match. So if all of these criteria need to be true for the records to be displayed, if it's any, then as long as one of these criteria is true, then it's going to display those records.
And also, if from here, if like one of the operator to finish a work order, can I do like they click on that work order and then they're gonna mark as complete and just delete from the table?
Yeah, for sure. So for example, let's do this. Let's do complete equals no. So we'll display all the open work orders. There's only one. Let me just add. Let me just say that this one is also not complete. This one here is also not complete. Okay, awesome. So now we have 3 work orders. And then basically what we'll do is we'll add a trigger to the interactive table. And we'll say, okay, when a row is selected, then we'll do data manipulation, store data, static value, Boolean, yes, because we want to mark it as yes, it's been completed. In the table record, current work order, complete. And then also just, we'll also say, let's also store when it was completed. So we'll say store app info, current date and time, in location, table record, current work order, date complete. So now if I come back in here, let me just make this a little bit smaller so you can see it. So for example, the 1, 2, 3, 3, 4, take a look at this here. and you'll see this switch over. As soon as I select it, it's going to go. Let me see. Second, maybe I don't know. I think I did the trigger right, but let me just see if I come in here. I select this. Yeah, you can see here it converted over to yes, and it stored the current date and time in here. Same thing for this 1, 2, 3. This row number 9. I select it. Yes, 10th of June, and then same with the other one. Yes, 10th of June.
Okay, gotcha. Thank you.
Yeah, so this trigger here, it's on the actual interactive table. It doesn't have to be. You can also put it on a button if you'd like. You can put it wherever you want. But yeah, you can definitely do that. Awesome. Are there any other questions on what was presented today or anything else that you need some help with?
Hi there, it's Chris. So I guess my question and I guess my struggle lately has been using an app to build a table record. So kind of for a backstory, we're looking to do like when there's an issue with a machine center operating like a troubleshooting guide. So they would fill out date, fill out what the issue was completed and stuff. So they would take that and that would populate into the table.
Yeah.
And I guess I'm having issues with figuring out that process.
Yeah.
In that, like I can understand, like I try to generate the table to match the variables, but sometimes it doesn't quite populate how it's supposed to. Like the information isn't created, the table record isn't created, and so I guess that's kind of where my struggle is.
Yeah, for sure. So first of all, I think to be perfectly honest, it is somewhat of a, like, let's say, like within like all of Tulip, like it's one of the more challenging things to understand is how to associate information in an app to information in a table. But I can do a quick demo here that I hopefully will be useful.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, so I come in here and basically I'll create a new table. I'll call it machine issues or something like this. So let me just go ahead and open up this table. By default, we'll have the ID column. Let's add just a couple of those things that you mentioned. We can add who's reported it. We can add the date of report. And we'll also add a description, for example.
Yep.
Okay, great. So now we have like the basic data structure of the table created. So now we can come back in here into any app. And if you see here, typically we're in steps, but the first thing we need to do is create a record placeholder.
Right.
So essentially what this does, yeah, okay, you've done this already?
Yes, so I've done that. And so I guess sometimes my issues with, I guess maybe it could be just the logical flow that I have, that it's not populating in that record placeholder or the steps to get there.
Oh, yeah.
So that just might be my issue.
Yeah, okay, so perfect. So I created this record placeholder. So now in here, the first thing that every record needs is an ID.
Okay.
So let me just add a label here so the user knows what they're inputting. And it doesn't need to be, it needs to be unique, but it doesn't need to be, actually, you know what? Instead of having it user entered, let me just add a button. The first thing we'll do is here, we'll say, okay, create issue. So in here, we'll add an action to this trigger and we'll say, okay, table records, create or load record. Yep. Or we can just do create record. Basically, create or load says, okay, it's the same as create, but if there is already a record with that ID, it loads it up. But here we'll just do create. By expression, we'll just do a random string. Yep. So we just want any old random string into the current machine issues. So we'll click save. Now I'll open up this table so we can see it happening in real time. I'll open up this step, and when I click this button, boom, we can see a new record has been created.
Right.
So every time I do it, okay, good. So now we want to, let's display this table record. So I went over here, text, and then table record to display it. And let's just select that one. So current machine issues, just like this. So we know what we're dealing with, the information we have.
Okay.
Next, we'll have some information here. So we'll say, okay, description of issue, for example, and we'll add an input. And here it's important that the input needs to match what there is in here. So
It has to match
here,
the type, the data type, right?
yeah, the data type, exactly right. So here, this is text. The description of the issue is a text. So we'll come in here, and here, instead of the data source being a variable, we'll change it over to a Tulip table record.
Okay.
We'll select, okay, so you see, it basically, Tulip automatically filters out to the matching data type. So we only have text description available. We'll make it a multiple line because it can be a little bit longer. But now that's it. So now we have this record loaded with, that starts with HT, it's this last one. And we say here, oil level low. You can see information automatically starts populating into the table itself.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah, and so here in this demo, of course, the player and the table are on the same computer, but it doesn't matter. It could be on the other side of the world. Would always write to this table once you create the link.
Okay. And so I've done something similar to that. The adding of the table, or like the table record on the app, that I haven't done that before, but I like that. So I was using a random string before. Is there a neat way to make it a little bit more of a, I guess, a progressional sort of numbering, or is that going to be a little bit more complicated when it comes to?
Yeah, it is, to be honest. So there is an internal, like we are working on doing that.
Okay.
So right now, what you could do is, for example, like do a random between, and you can define two numbers.
Okay.
Otherwise, and it does get a little bit more involved, but this is a good, like it basically does successive IDs.
Okay.
And let me see if I can find it. Auto increment. I think it was. Yeah, here. I think it was this one here.
Okay.
Yeah. So basically, what you need to do is create a table API, connect to it, and basically, and here I can just send you this so you can follow in your own time. It's actually not that involved, but it does require setting up a table API. But basically, what this does is, if you can see here, it says limit one, sort by sequence number, sort direction descending. So it just sorts everything by descending, and then it takes the biggest one. And then within the app, we see, so for example, here we have an ID with 6. And when we run the app, we'll just run this connector function, save it as a maximum, and then add 1 to this to store it as the new ID. And then the new ID will be 7, so you can use that as the ID.
Gotcha. Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Yeah, of course. But just so you know, we are working on a way to make this more kind of seamless.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah. But yeah, so I guess then are you also familiar with how to like store information that's not like user input that comes from the app?
I'm kind of working on that. So like one thing that we're looking to do is, for example, so if we're creating a table record, say if we're logging an issue, looking at a input, so that way, like there's might be 2 dates. One date, what they will enter a date and time, say this is the issue, that this is when it was recorded, but then another trigger or a date populated by the trigger when they put, like they do select or submit. That way there's 2 different times showing when the issue was reported and when the issue was actually like happened. So that's, I guess, if that makes sense.
Yeah. So for example, here, this one reported, and let me add another one. I'll say date of occurrence.
Okay.
Come in and I'll see when we create the record. Let's also add another action. We'll say store, and here we'll just do app info, current date and time. So whatever the current time is where the player is running, table record. No, sorry, the wrong one. Current machine issues, date of report. I'll create, see, basically, boom, there we have it. The date that it was reported is populated. And then if for friends that want to link it up to a date picker, you know, kind of like when you're booking a hotel.
Yep.
Yeah. So, yeah, so this one here, I'll just link it up to date of occurrence. So now the same way that we were seeing earlier with the description, if I come in here and I select the date, out of it, 15, that the table has this information here.
Perfect.
Yeah.
That's really helpful. Thank you so much.
Yeah, of course. No, it's good. I mean, yeah, like I said earlier, like understanding how to like link up data between the app and the table is like sometimes it does take a little getting used to, but once you understand it, it's like you just fly through them. You know, you can easily create records and send data back and forth.
Perfect. Thank you. I appreciate it.
Yeah, of course. Also, are there any other questions? Okay. Yeah, awesome. So I guess let me just share one last update for folks that aren't familiar. Tulip Vision is a fairly new component within the Tulip platform, and basically lets you build vision within your apps, again, without writing any code. So if you can offer from whatever your apps with, you can see here, so you can detect changes. It's pretty new, so it's still in beta, but I think it's really interesting. You can see here, feel free to click down. We have documentation on this, so you can understand some of the capabilities. You can see this. We won't play this whole thing now. You can kind of see how it, when it loads up. Yeah, so basically here you can see we set up what's called a regist. You can go in here, you know, if you buy a depth camera, you can define different heights at which events are triggered. But, you know, in the same way that when you can trigger events on a button click from an app, you can also trigger events on vision, things that happen from vision. So you can see colleague Felix will then, so when the device, then he'll go down and select the configuration of the camera, changes began, and then you can, you know, with the same kind of trigger logic that you're used to, you can build vision into your apps. But so I guess that was all like the intro, but I wanted to share it because on next Monday I have a webinar with Roy, who's someone from the team at Tulip. We'll be walking through some use cases that Vision seemed to unlock already and how you can easily set it up. So I'll share this link here. I think it's quite interesting just to kind of understand what can be done. So yeah, wanted to share that there. But yeah, that was it. If there are any questions, feel free to reach out in community, or you can email me directly. But thanks everybody for joining. Welcome to all the new folks. Good to see lots of new faces. And then we'll see everybody next week.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Awesome.
Good. Thank you. See you around.
Thanks. Bye-bye. Bye-bye. See ya.